Hello and welcome to Players Peeves. Here we talk about two sides of a story that most people find controversial. Today I'm going to talk Dungeons & Dragons. As you'll see, it's first of hopefully a many-part series. With this, I'm going to start with the Wizard versus Sorcerer debate. First thing you have to know is that I am specifically sticking to 3.5. I'll be discussing the additions on a later date. Firstly, Wizard, Sorcerer. They're both mages, they're both quite powerful, and they're both good. Most people I know find it a one side or the other argument. Most people I've played with previously have decided that the Sorcerer is the only way to go. And if you pick a Wizard, well, they just suck. Now, in my opinion, Wizards are the way to go. But I'll explain to you the reasoning for both. A Sorcerer in Dungeons & Dragons gets a few amount of choices for spells, large amount of spells they can cast per day. To any of the spells they know, they can cast. Period. End of story. Now, when it comes to a Wizard, Wizard, they get less spells per day, don't get the spontaneous casting ability, but their spellbook more than makes up for it. You see, as a Wizard, instead of just knowing all the spells they do, they keep a spellbook. In the spellbook there are anything from Charm Person to Flare to Meteor Storm, so you get a large differentiation. A Sorcerer tends to be just combat. You take Magic Missile, Burning Hands at a level, maybe Mage Armor. Higher levels you take Disintegration, Fireball. Very powerful spells, because let's face it, you're going to be doing combat. A Wizard most people look as inferior for the fact that they have less spells they have less spells per day, and the fact that they have the inability to just spontaneously cast them, that creates a problem. Now, the biggest difference between the two is the early game versus late game argument. The Sorcerer, something you have to understand about 3.5. At low levels you get few spells. Most people tend to try and shy away from spellcasters for that reason. They are also incredibly squishy and don't deal that much damage. Now, for that reason is why they pick a Sorcerer, because they get more spells, can spontaneously cast them, which means it's easier to become, and the offense spells they can just cast bam 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 and the enemy's dead. Wizards tend to be shied away from for the opposite reason. They get less spells, they have to be very careful about the spells they do pick, because there is no room for error at low levels. Thus most people find they're inferior. In my opinion, the Wizards are actually more better because they have their spellbook. Now, low levels you have that problem, but at high levels, that's where you start getting the utility spells, the strong utility spells. For example, Permanency. Now, Permanency is a spell that allows you to choose one from a list and then just make it permanent. Now, most of these you can only do on yourself or on an object, and you have to know this other spell in order to permanency it. A Sorcerer you'll never find pick that. That reasoning is, why pick it on something like Permanency that requires more spells that they clearly do not have the room to pick, when they could pick Fireball or something better. But a Wizard can pick that, saying, hey, I can use that. I can just get more spells that I don't have to worry about. So those are the types of reasoning. Now, the biggest difference between wizards and sorcerers. Early start, good early start, versus good late finish. Wizards, you'll always see a more powerful ending because they have room to experiment, they have choices. Whereas a sorcerer, they're still the same thing they were at the beginning. Combat, and that's it. Let's face it, if you're at level 20 and you're still just focusing on combat, sure, I have nothing wrong with that. But in my opinion, I think you should be moving on to greater, grander things like, oh, I don't know, ruling the country, or killing gods. Where most of the time you have to get yourself into a situation in order to do that, which you need more utility spells. Now, I've rambled on for long enough. Please leave a comment in the description on which side of the argument you fall on, and I'll get back to you if I see there's more information at the end of the week update. Wait, there you will find the next you'll find me adding things to this in which I forgot. Now, that's not necessarily guaranteed, but please comment on it and I'll try my best to get back to you. See you next time.